Hi class. In this video here, I just want to do a brief discussion of section 5.3. And section 5.3 is about knots and links, and it's about untangling ropes and rings. Okay, so what's going on in this section? So when we think of flexible, bendable, or controllable objects, at some point we think of strings, right? Loops of strings can be knotted or looped together with other loops of strings. This mundane, everyday observation usually leads to interesting discoveries with important consequences. Here we investigated the twisted world of knots and links and find that knots, at the most fundamental level, play a role in the creation of life itself. So you can see here we have the DNA strand. And so the textbook here, and I won't go into detail with it too much, but the textbook here begins with the discussion of DNA and how it's used to replicate, and some of the interesting observations with that. It's a good read. But what I want to talk about in this section is knots and links in my video here. Okay, so what we have what's called the knot, and we have what's called the unknot. Okay, this right here, this looks like a circle. So imagine you have like a rubber band, and it's just circled like this. Okay, there's no knots in it. This is called an unknot. Okay, so that's easy. So an unknot, intuitively, the unknot is a closed loop of rope without a knot tied into it. So it's unknotted. So we just call it an unknot. And then you can see here we have what's called the trifoil knot. So it's tri because of three connecting points there. Okay, so notice that in each example is a closed curve rather than a strand with free ends. So if you notice in each of these, there's no free ends to this. Okay, because a rope with free ends can always be unknotted simply by pushing a free end through the knottedness in the string. Okay, so although we talk about taking a length of string and putting a knot in it, in the context of this knot theory that we're going to talk about, unless we glue the free ends together, we are not actually creating a real knot. So like if you look at this is just not a knot. Okay, it's not knotted. So what happens is you're like, oh, there's a knot there, but you could just push this through and undo it and to get your string back. Whereas in these examples here, there's nothing to push through. Okay, it's a closed loop here. All right, and then we have links. We all know what a chain is. It is an object that is constructed from some number of closed loops that may be knotted either individually or about one another. What people may not know is that mathematicians call such a collection of loops a link. So a trivial example of a link is a collection of round circles that do not interact at all. All right, this link is boring. It's called an unlink, okay? But when you link them like this, it is called a link. It's linked somehow. And you might have seen videos of like, how do you undo this link? And you see a mathematician do it, but what's really going on actually is there's a hole in one of these, links. Anyways, what our section kind of ends on is what's called the Borromean rings. Okay, and these are rings that either hang together or they don't hang at all. So the question is, what this section builds toward is it possible to link three rings together in such a manner that they are indeed linked, yet if we remove any one of the rings, the other two remaining rings become unlinked? It seems that the answer must be no. All right, so for example, if you remove this middle link, okay, it's like, yeah, they're unlinked, okay, because these two would be separated. But if you removed this one, okay, then the other two remain linked. So the three circles are linked. If we remove the middle circle, the other two become unlinked. However, if we remove the right or left circle, the other two circles remain linked. Okay. What we want to know is whether we can link the three rings so that the removal of any, not just a particular ring, leads to the unlinking of the remaining two. The answer seems to be no. Okay. But do you agree? Well, it turns out, okay, the answer to this linking challenge is yes, there is a way to link three rings such the removal of any one will automatically unlink the other two. And it's what's called the Borromean rings. An example of such a linking is shown here below. And what it looks like is an Olympic symbol. And you actually can't make this out of circles. You can make it, but theoretically, this is a theoretical linking. You'd have to make it with ovals to actually have it work. But the way it works is, look at this green one. It's positioned and linked so that it's always above the blue one. The red one is positioned and linked. It goes through the blue one, but it's always above the green one, right? The green one always above the blue one, but linked with the red one, and so on. So what happens is if you remove the green one, the blue and red ones are unlinked. If you remove the blue one, well, because the red one's above the green one, they become unlinked. All right. So that was just some theory. So let me do some mindscapes for you, okay, just so you could see the type of questions that are going to be asked. So here's mindscape one, the naughty start. Which of the following knots are mathematical knots? Okay. So if you look here, the only definition for something to be not a not a knot. I know that sounds weird, but it's a situation like this, right? Okay, you can have the unknot, all right, but here you could see when you have two ends. So here, this has a knot in it. This is a tri knot. This one has a knot in it, but here you have two ends. So this is the only one that is not a mathematical knot. Okay, Mindscape 4. Is the figure below a knot or a link? Well, let's look. A knot, it would be one string, but if you look here, it looks like there is an oval, and then what goes through it is another unknot. Okay, so there actually is no knot here. So this is just a link. This is just a link. You have to look and see if it's actually the same piece of string. Like if you look at this one, it's the same string. This one here is two different ones, so it's a link. All right, so Mindscape 13. Use a piece of string or an extension cord to determine if this illustration is a knot or an unknot. Well, so it might look like it is a knot because it has loops, but what the characteristic here, the main characteristic and why this is actually an unknot, is you can simply unwind it to get back to an unknot. So basically what it did was it took an unknot like this, and it just turned it upside down, but you can just undo it to get an unknot. Like here, there's no way to undo this knot, okay? So that's why it would be a knot. So this right here would actually be an unknot because you could just unravel it. All right, class, I know that was a quick introduction to this section, but as always, if you have questions or concerns, let me know. And to fill in the holes, please make sure you read the entire rest of the section.